All right. I guess to sort of start off, I actually want to begin with something a little bit more personal, I guess. So it's something like my dad has often told these sort of stories about how when you guys were growing up in, Jersey, obviously you went to Randy School, about you're the sons of, two immigrants. You're also kind of, two sort of skinny, nerdy Indian kids, maybe a little bit. And
I was
often at,
I was nerdier than your dad, by the way.
I'm sure. But he's often told me that like at certain times that you guys maybe would get, picked on the bus or something, and bullies would, make fun of you. But the one thing he's always said is that you had this kind of remarkable ability to always sort of come back with these like, really sharp, punchy jokes that you tell to the bully that would sort of just be these, great comebacks. And it's something he like still talks about today. So I guess I'm curious as you sort of take me back to that
So
time.
that's
And
that's kind
yeah,
of that's kind of my brother to say.
yeah,
So I don't remember any particular quip I used, but I do think that since I was skinny and a terrible athlete and a nerdy kid with braces, thick glasses, I weighed like 100 pounds soaking wet, and when I was dealing with somebody who was picking on me, more in like grade school
yeah,
and I guess middle school we call it now. I used to call it junior
yeah,
high.
yeah,
Um, you could kind of hit back not with a punch, but with something that was kind of like an ace in tennis
yeah,
or a
yeah,
checkmate. Like they can't respond
exactly.
and get people. If you can get people to laugh at someone, you kind of have won.
Yeah,
I think that was a mechanism for fighting back because it's all I had. It's all I
right.
had. It was a clever remark.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess now to sort of bring it back to now and not, get out of the
I
70s
get
for
bullied a
now.
lot less.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about a note that you wrote in 2022 for Cafe that I've had the chance to read it a bunch. It's really well written. It's called When Joy's on the Run. And it kind of gets into, I think, a lot of what I want to talk about today, which is, and in the note, like one of your main arguments that you talk about is that how laughter, especially in, dark or sort of hard times, can be this sort of, lifeline for a lot of people, and how
Yeah.
many people need it, like not just for their, to laugh, but also to sort of maintain and to sort of sustain themselves. And you cite, many figures in the note, like from Charlie Chaplin to Lincoln to Viktor Frankl as well. And one quote that really stood out to me from Lincoln that you used, Lincoln said, quote, with the fearful strain that is on me night and day, if I did not laugh, I should die. And then in the note, you also add how, quote, I also feel that way sometimes. So I guess I was curious just to sort of hear what you think. I know it was many years ago at this point, but I'm curious to hear sort of
Yeah.
why you decided to include those quotes, and I guess why you wrote that note.
So I believe that for a lot of reasons, humor is and laughter is absolutely essential to living a good life, to surviving bad times, to accentuating and having greater highlights in good times. And every once in a while, I'm sure this is what happened. Every once in a while, someone will complain and say, how can you make jokes at a time like this?
Mm.
Country's in trouble. Trump is the president. There are wars going on. I'm like, that's exactly when you need him. When life is great and everybody is rich and everyone is healthy and you're super secure, you don't need a lifeline. Like the lifeline term that you use, I think is a good one and the right one. You got to be able to laugh at those times and seek out laughter in those times. Early on in the pandemic, I had at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 on the podcast, I had on epidemiologists and I had on
Oh, wow.
policy makers who would talk about the ravages of the disease and the necessity for a vaccine and all this serious stuff. And then I realized, who I want on the podcast. This is in the first 2 or 3 weeks. Mike Birbiglia,
Oh, yeah, yeah. That
who's
was my next question, actually.
he's a great comedian.
It's good.
I've
Yeah.
seen him in multiple one man shows. I first met him
Right.
actually with my brother,
Oh,
your
wow.
dad, at the Montreal Comedy Festival, where I think he won Comic of the Year
Oh, wow.
because it was important while there was all this uncertainty, all this tragedy, all this crisis, all this loneliness, all this separation, all this foreboding, to talk to a person about those things, but also with an eye towards, getting people to laugh.
Yeah.
Um, in serious situations, whether it's during surgery, or in battle, if you're not able to joke then, they call it gallows humor for a reason. If you're not able to joke then I think you're going to have a lot of issues that you might not
Right.
otherwise have.
Yeah, then you're lost, sort of a thing.
I
Uh,
think you're lost. If you just like, I don't think there's any. I mean, yes, in the middle of certain things, you probably probably shouldn't laugh, or make fun of somebody. But I actually don't think there's any place, if you do it right and you've read the room and you have the right tone. I don't think there's any place where you can't make a joke, including funerals.
wow.
Some of the
Oh, wow.
hardest laughter that's ever come out of my mouth, the biggest belly laughter, have been at funerals when somebody is remembering the deceased, and often it's a family member,
Right.
and it's so sad. It's so sad that someone has passed away, and we'll never be able to talk to them again, or see them again, or hug them again, or kiss them again. And somebody remembers something funny about that person, or makes a joke about the circumstances. I'll
Right.
give you an example of one if you
Yeah,
want in a
sure.
minute. Um, and there is such like so everyone's sitting there sniffling, everyone's sad, and people are blowing their noses, and they feel a lot of grief, even if the person has lived a long life. And then somebody tells a good joke
Right.
that's a tasteful joke or an unexpected joke. Um, the place erupts in laughter, and people feel better. And it's called comic relief for a reason. It's
Yeah.
relief from tension, anxiety, pain, suffering. So my view is the most important time where you need to keep a handle on humor and comedy and laughter is when times are very, very tough, tragic, and sad.
Right. Yeah. That was a good segue, I think, earlier when you mentioned your podcast, because obviously on your show, you guys are talking about some pretty serious things, kind of very highly intellectual, whether it's, legal issues or, modern day sort of current events. But you also make an effort to also include different comedians, not just Mike Birbiglia, but also like, I know you did a live show with Ben Stiller one time, and he kind of offered that sort of different side to the conversation in a way. Also, you've had like Bassem Youssef, you had a live show with him as well. So I guess sort of staying on that topic, what do you think they can sort of offer on your show that maybe a very highly intellect talking about like a very serious thing couldn't?
They're a little bit of a change of pace. Look, the other thing that's going
Yeah.
on is I should admit that I'm sort of a closet wannabe stand-up comic.
Ah.
I've always liked to tell jokes. I have the opportunity to do that when I do a live podcast, and I'll do a few minutes of sort of remarks at the beginning. So it's my opportunity at my own show to have a captive audience and pretend for like 5 minutes that I'm doing a tight five at a near a comedy club like the Comedy Cellar or something.
Yeah.
And I like talking. Look, I also think the other thing about comedians. So there are two different things, right? So everyone, whether you're professional or not, most of us, obviously, the vast majority of us are not professionals. As comedians, should have a sense of humor and should develop a sense of humor and should want to laugh and should want to let other people, feel comfortable laughing. Then you have the professional class, which you're referring to,
Yeah.
of comedians who I watched a lot of stand up comedy. I still watch a lot of stand up comedy, not as much as I should. Um, I think people who are good at stand up comedy, the best of them, like Norm Macdonald, late Norm Macdonald,
Yeah.
it's a very shallow understanding to think of them as just sort of laugh machines. What makes them the funniest ones are the most keen observers, I think, of human nature and our foibles and what's nonsensical about the world around us and how some things we do are really stupid,
Right.
but they don't lecture.
Yeah.
Generally, you can't, if you're lecturing somebody, they're not going to laugh. They're not going to, you um, be joyful about it. But, but if you can, this is sort of a corollary to the thing you were saying before with the bullies. So one mode is to be a cutting person and to knock someone down verbally if they've knocked you down physically. But the other mode of that as you get older and you're not getting bullied and you're hanging out with your friends is, and I know you do this,
Yeah.
is to gently make fun of somebody who's your friend or your family member in a way that shows them that you're really observant
Yeah.
and you have paid attention to them and they can see something about themselves that they didn't see before. I think that's great.
Yeah. I actually had my first sort of like formal stand-up skit that I'm doing this Friday. Actually, at like a
Oh,
senior center. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to a senior center on Friday, so I'm
are you doing
pretty
the
nervous.
impressions, or are you
Ma-
going to be you?
Mainly impressions, I think, but I think when I'm kind of transitioning between the figures, then I'll have to actually speak my own voice and do things. So definitely a little nervous
Are
for
you
that.
are you
Yeah.
what is that going to be PG-13 also?
Probably. I mean, the people there are all like super old seniors, so I think I have to make sure I can't I can't do the jokes I was doing at like the wedding when I
When
talk about deporting people.
so not everybody who's a professional comedian observes the rule of like know your audience.
Yeah.
So a very good friend of mine went to a fundraiser for some cause, and it was like a sort of conservative, older Korean American crowd.
Uh,
They got as their comedian, paid money to headline the fundraiser. The charity was Tracy Morgan.
ah.
You know Tracy Morgan.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
Tracy Morgan is not PG-13,
Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely
and
not.
Tracy Morgan did not alter his act, and he kept making jokes that sent people to like they didn't find it fun. They didn't find it
Uh,
funny. So he'd make a
didn't
joke
run
that
well.
probably you and I would crack up at, and your dad would crack up at, and then they got
Uh.
crickets.
It's also a good segue to my next sort of I guess topic I want to talk about, which is late night comedy and media, because obviously that's been a very relevant issue, especially
Yeah.
with the recent news of Stephen Colbert. So you've obviously been on many of these shows. Like I saw you were on Bill Maher in like 2018, and in 2019 you were on Colbert show. So I guess like, what do you think about that style of comedy? Because I know right now it's sort of in the spotlight. People say it's not
Yeah.
effective. Some people do, and that style is I guess known to be that sort of like punch up kind of political satire, making fun of like leaders or figures. So I'm just curious about like what you think about that type of humor.
So I was addicted to
Yeah,
late night shows. I had a small black and white TV that my parents bought when they first came to the United States, and I would go to my room and do homework. Had old fashioned antenna, and it was like
yeah,
a cathode ray tube. And every night, I think when I was very young, it was Johnny Carson.
yeah.
But I would stay up till after that and watch. I guess it was called Late Night with David Letterman. And later became he
Right.
went to CBS and did the Late Show. I can still recite to you jokes he told and skits he did. David Letterman
Right.
kind of rocked my world, like changed my whole world every night. And so
Right.
I got a lot of comic sensibility from that. He was political sometimes, maybe not as political as some other folks. Johnny Carson was not political at all.
Mm.
Um, I think it's great social commentary.
Right.
Then you had other late night shows. So I think it's a shame that Colbert's show is canceled. Not only
Yeah.
he's been canceled, but it sounds like that whole idea of a show
Yeah.
that's been running consecutively on that network for decades is gone. And I don't know if it was for
Yeah.
political reasons or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of Trump or not, but it's a shame. Now, people come in and out of favor and in and out of style. I think there is an argument, without naming any names, um, that some shows, if they just sound one lazy note every night, like oh
Yeah.
Donald Trump is orange,
Yeah.
no, that's not interesting. That's not clever. That's not witty. Bill Maher, not everyone loves because
Yeah.
they care about like. I watch Bill Maher because every once in a while he says something that's different
Yeah.
and makes me think, and he doesn't subscribe to a particular orthodoxy. He's like crazy anti-Trump, but
Yeah.
but people on the left hate him anyway
You're right.
because he has some, no,
Very anti woke too. Is
yeah, yeah, and but like so I watch him because he says interesting things from time to time. He has like interesting smart guests, except on two occasions when it was me. Um,
no.
and and he's really funny.
Yeah,
He's,
definitely.
he has a
Yeah.
lot of
That
writers.
monologue that he does is great. Like in the
It's
beginning.
like what when I watch Bill Maher, I actually laugh.
Yeah. You
There are
laugh
some
out
things
loud,
that
right? Yeah.
when I watch other things, I don't want to get in trouble. For a period of time, I would tweet that episodes of Saturday Night Live like sucked, and my wife would be like, "Stop tweeting about Saturday Night Live." The first goal is to be funny.
Right. Yeah. What is it about humor do you think that I guess sort of makes it so effective at tackling these sort of complex issues that you typically are associated with very serious, serious sort of audiences and serious conversations? Why do you think it's sort of
It,
able to allow people to talk about it, but in sort of a different way that's more
look, I
relatable,
think
I guess?
it shows you the world in a way you haven't seen the world, right?
Yeah,
And like a novel, which is fiction, you read it and you're like, oh, I guess I'm not the only person who's ever experienced this.
yeah,
Other people have, and
right,
sometimes the humor can be very very simple,
right,
and it just exposes the truth. There's one of my one of my favorite skits, not skits, one of my favorite stand up um, little riffs is I don't even know the name of the comedian, but he's talking about how he went golfing with his buddy,
yeah,
and his buddy had just gotten divorced some months earlier, and he went to go play golf with his buddy. Like it's like I come home, my wife is like, how's Rick, the friend,
yeah.
and the guy's like, he's good, and his wife is like, is he seeing anyone? He's like, I don't know. She's like, didn't you play golf with Rick today? Yep.
And
Was he
caught Rick.
seeing anyone? He's like, I don't know. Like, didn't you ask him? He got divorced. Like, did you ask him? I'm like, no, it didn't come up. He's like, and then he goes on and asks him a bunch of questions, like normal questions. He's like, I don't know. I have no idea. And then he's like, I felt bad that I apparently had no information about my friend. I told my wife, but he's got a new 9-iron. That's the, that's the one thing he knew.
That's funny. There was a clip I was watching recently. It was you in the Daily Show back in 2017. It was like a sort of a I think it was a pre-recorded skit with
Oh, I
like
did
you
a
and
sketch
Hassan
with Hassan
Minaj. You know,
Minaj.
you said justice can't be binge watched. That like line, like, there was a whole meme about it and everything, and he was like making jokes about how you were unemployed, and then he like, he fake brought his parents on, and they were like making fun
Yeah.
of you. So that was super funny, but also at the same time, it was sort of able to also offer a lot of commentary about you know more serious sort of like civic issues at the same time. So I think that was a great example of something you've been in. That's great.
No, it was a lot of fun.
Right.
Look, you got to be able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
look. There's different kinds of humor, right? There's making fun of other people. It's also being self-deprecating, which is
right,
important. Just another point I would make. Another way I think about humor is up to this date, if I have to give a talk
yeah,
or a speech, um, I don't consider myself to be prepared unless I've thought of a joke
right, yeah,
or a story at the beginning. And the reason I think that is people are not always expecting it. Most speeches begin very serious. Um, when I was U.S. attorney, when I was prosecuting people for a living, it was not expected that I would, start a serious event with a joke.
right,
It disarms people. It gets them relaxed. When you smile, you feel better about everything. And then they're much more likely to like you. They're much more likely to listen to you. They're much more likely to, you know, settle in and pay attention.
yeah, yeah. Like your job is so serious. You're dealing with very high level stuff, whether it's doing subpoenas on people or like, wiretapping criminals, prosecuting people. But then at the same time, I think to be able to balance that with sort of like lighthearted wittiness is, I
Yeah,
think,
but it's also like
kind of superpower. Right?
it's also being a human being, right?
Yeah,
Um, I made a point before, like what's impressive about your impressions or anyone's impressions, and particularly if you do them, of people who are not famous
right,
that you can't, do on YouTube because nobody knows what your friend, acts like. Um, it's a kind of flattery,
yeah, yeah.
right?
It is
I don't know
actually.
that you're flattering Donald Trump, but when you do it with the people around you,
Right,
um, if you've observed something about somebody and you're able to make a joke about it that's good natured, um, that tells that person that you paid attention to them.
yeah,
Also, the best thing you can do is in the moment make a joke about, you know, something that has happened on the stage before you got up there, or in the room, or at the party, or wherever. Because then people realize that you've taken the effort to understand what's going on,
yeah,
you've observed something, and you figured out a way to articulate your observation in a way that makes people laugh, which shows, I think, again, attentiveness. Look, people don't think of humor this way, usually. But the thing that people crave the most is sort of attention and being heard and being understood.
Yeah.
And so if you're very good at observing people and things and situations, that's a form of respect.
Yeah. Right. I guess the last thing I want to sort of get into is how you think certain leaders have used and I guess wielded humor in their own ways. And we maybe talked about this before, but I think like that moment back in 2011 when Obama kind of like was, poking those jokes at Trump at the White House
Yeah.
Correspondents' Dinner. And as I'm curious to hear like kind of what you think about that and whether that, did sort of fuel the, fire in Trump to, run
You
and
got to be
take over.
careful
Yeah.
if you make fun of someone in humiliating form and everyone laughed,
Yeah.
it could bite you in the political ass, which
Yeah.
which it kind of did. One could argue.
Yeah.
I also think that Obama was one of the funnier presidents.
Yeah. Right.
Um, there are two jokes that he told. And by the way, some of the jokes are like can be very, very simple.
Yeah.
And Obama was giving, I don't know if it was that speech or some other speech, where he was talking about the breakdown to bipartisanship, in the Senate, in politics in Washington generally. He's like, people will say to me, I can't do an impression. You can do this. People will say to me, Barack, why don't you just have a drink with Mitch McConnell?
Right.
And he's like, you have a drink with Mitch McConnell. And it's kind of funny in the delivery. I didn't do it right, but it's funny in the
Nah, that's
delivery. Like that's real. That's actually really funny.
yeah.
He told a joke. His best joke. His best joke was apparently at some public birthday party for Rahm Emanuel, his chief of staff,
Oh, really?
someone who may run for
Yeah.
president, who was very famously foul mouthed,
Yeah.
drops the f bomb a lot. Uh, Rahm Emanuel famously, when he was young, working in a fast food restaurant,
Right.
was working with a slicer, I think, and sliced off like the top half
What?
of his middle finger.
Oh, yeah.
And Obama's telling the story. He was at this accident. The sliced off the top half of his middle finger, thereby rendering him virtually mute.
Oh, oh my God.
Smart, right? Smart joke.
Hey, very witty. Yeah.
Then you have these are my examples of like politics. So I worked for Senator Schumer. I was his chief counsel for
Yeah.
a while, and he had a very good stock joke that always made people laugh. It was kind of dorky. It was clean. It was good. It had every feature of a good joke, and it was in his repertoire. When he had occasion to talk about his family, he would say, wanted four kids. Iris, his wife, Iris wanted two kids, so he compromised at two.
The
Right?
classic,
Simple,
classic, simple humor. Yeah.
simple humor. It like works in every audience. He had a similar joke about playing basketball at Madison High School,
Right.
which is the only high school in the country. He would always say that graduated three future senators, each from a different party. Like, how can that be?
Yeah. What?
Well, because it was
Yeah. Yeah.
Schumer, Democrat, Norm Coleman, Republican senator,
Yeah.
and Bernie Sanders, independent.
Oh. Oh.
No, and he would say he played basketball, like, it was fine. We were short, but slow. Simple stuff. And
Yeah.
it doesn't take a lot of effort to have something like that
No. Yeah.
in your back pocket. And I think it humanizes you and it makes people more comfortable.
Right. What do you think about Donald Trump's kind of use of humor? Because I know one of the criticisms that he gets is that, one, that he kind of never makes like self-deprecating jokes, and also that his sort of style that he uses more of that sort of like bully, punch down on others humor. But I think he's kind of very effective in while the mechanism that he uses it may not be super ethical. I mean, I
Yeah.
sort of personally think that he's kind of very effective, like especially in the 2016 debates, like when he used it there. I think that was really like captivating for the audience.
I don't care for Donald Trump in many ways, but
Yeah.
but I don't underestimate him.
Yeah.
And he's got skills. Like, a
Yeah,
lot of
definitely.
liberals don't like to say that. He does.
Yeah.
Uh, I think some of his humor that people like is destructive and bad because he lies about people.
Right.
Look, is Pocahontas. So some people will find his reference to Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, to be really, really funny.
Yeah.
I know some liberals would think it's funny. You can be the judge of that. Like there's
Right.
more, you know, He's a bit of an asshole with some of his
Yeah.
humor,
Yeah.
which is fine. You know, so are a lot of other comedians, but he's not a comedian. He's the current president. Um, but there's other stuff that helps him, endear himself to his audience and makes thin-skinned liberals go crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like, so for example, I don't find him particularly funny, but I understand why some people do.
Yeah.
And it's a great tool and asset that he has. I mean, he was asked once, and I saw how people found this hilarious if you supported him. He said, why do you call it the China virus?
It's like
Right?
because it comes from China.
Because it comes from China.
Yeah, China.
You can do it better. Can you do it?
Well, because it comes from China.
Yeah. And you know what?
Yeah.
People thought that was freaking hilarious. And
Yeah.
I can respect why people thought that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the last person I wanted to ask you about in terms of like, big figures using humor is Ronald Reagan, because I know he's also kind of very synonymous for, obviously when he was young, he was an actor. And then when he was president, like during his speeches, there are kind of a number of jokes that people still, I think, talk about. And then when he was president, he was also kind of known to be a great communicator. And also, he would crack jokes. Like I was saying, during that one speech when the balloon popped in the background, he said that famous line, "Miss me" or whatever. And there are also many other moments. I guess I'm curious to sort of ask you about his. I know it was many years ago, but his
Yeah, no.
comedic style that he wielded.
A politician's ability to disarm other people
Yeah.
is an unbelievable asset, is
Right.
an unbelievable attribute to have. Now, part of the problem is politicians who don't make jokes much
Right.
because it's easy to offend, and everyone gets offended so easily that something meant in jest comes across poorly. So I've known politicians who don't make a lot of jokes in public. I think that's unfortunate and a shame. Reagan was one, but Bob Dole was hilarious. Alan Simpson, probably most people don't remember,
Yeah.
senator from the West, was notably very, very funny. We had an actual comedian as a
Yeah.
senator briefly, Al Franken. And look, you're talking about a joke that Ronald Reagan made, making a
Yeah.
reference back to when he was almost
Yeah.
killed. There was an assassination attempt early in his presidency, and there's a lot of people who were skeptical about him. He won 49 states in 1984. He didn't win
Yeah.
quite by that much when he was facing Carter in 1980. But he gets shot. The whole country is like, what is happening? This is a terrible event. And I think famously he said, or it was reported to the public because he didn't face the press, that he was conscious when he was being wheeled into emergency surgery because he'd been
All
very
right. Right.
seriously shot. And he looks up at his doctors and he just says,
Yeah.
I hope you're Republicans.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
I hope you're, and you know what? It's like the funeral example. The country's on edge. We don't know what this means for our national security. We don't know what this means for our democracy. It's an assault on our democracy. President may die. He was
Yeah.
shot, by the way, on live television,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
cameras were on him. And then we hear, how's he doing? How's he doing? No amount of reassurance from a doctor about his pulse or his blood or his heart rate or his bleeding or none of that could have been anywhere near as reassuring as getting the report that he said to his doctors as he's undergoing emergency surgery in an assassination attempt
Right.
as the president of the United States, the commander in chief. I hope you're Republicans,
Right.
right? And look, in some ways, by the way, further to what I was saying about funerals, the other reason why it's notable when someone makes a joke in a tragic or potentially tragic circumstance is it's a lot funnier
Yeah.
because it's less expected. It takes a little bit more deftness of delivery and skill, and people love it.
Right.
Like that joke in a different circumstance when something else was going on. Um, you know,
The timing.
that
Timing's
is. I
timing's
mean, there
everything.
there are a million circumstances in which he could have joked. Like, let's say he was doing a zip line or something. Like,
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
Republicans.
Yeah. It
That's
wouldn't be as
funny.
funny. Yeah.
At a moment when everyone was concerned that you might die from an assassination attempt, it's that much more funny.
One last question I want to ask you about is, so in your book, there's a line you wrote that I guess really sort of stuck out. You said that, quote, modesty and laughter keep one grounded.
Yeah.
So I guess I was curious why you think those two things sort of go hand in hand, I guess.
Because otherwise,
Mm.
if you're arrogant enough, if you're too arrogant and too serious in all things, you're really a terrible person to be around. I think you miss things.
Yeah.
Um, Modesty and laughter are not the same thing. They're different. They're different things. But you want to remain humble.
Yeah.
And if you're humble, you don't get over your skis as much. If you're humble, I think people respect you more. If you're humble, you work hard when you don't know something. When you're humble, I think um, you're among other things better to be around.
Yeah.
And laughter, I guess generally, I guess more specifically, I was talking about self-deprecating, being able to
Yeah.
laugh at yourself
Yeah.
um, is really important. It keeps you grounded. If you have the ability, even in serious times, as we've been discussing throughout this conversation, to be able to laugh, that keeps you in the real world as opposed to being in a world of panic and anxiety and fear. Um, so I think those two things, I guess in a way do go together.
Yeah.
And I think you live longer.
Yeah.
I think you live longer. But you should never say to anybody the most annoying admonition that there is.
What is that?
Do you know it takes twice as many muscles to frown than to smile?
That.
Yeah, F you. Whatever.
All right.
All right, man.
All right, great. Thanks so much for doing this.